Now that everything is settled, it's better if the nuisance leaves, right? LOL. You're right, Mom. I was thinking the same. So that's settled, Samantha. I'm divorcing you. Please leave right now. Despite being married and forced to live with my in-laws, all the while helping with loan repayments, I was suddenly deemed a nuisance and faced with a divorce. My husband and mother-in-law decided everything on their own and deliberately completed most of the procedures before informing me. No matter how much I resisted, they wouldn't listen. I'm sorry, but I plan to drag my husband and his entire family down to hell. LOL. My name is Samantha, and I'm 34 years old. I've been married to Michael for 6 years now. We don't have children yet, and honestly, our marital relationship is completely dry. I thought marrying you would bring more excitement to my life, but this was unexpected. LOL. Well, I plan to use you as a housekeeper here for life. Just don't get too cocky. 6 months after our marriage, he started calling me you, and now I couldn't even remember him ever using my name. Why did I marry such a cold man? Sometimes I reflect on the past, but I can't remember why I married him. However, my husband used to be much kinder, compassionate, and reliable. Originally from a poor family, I always thought that I would avoid financial troubles once I got married. So a man who would dabble even slightly in gambling was out of the question for me. Even after graduating from high school and starting work, I couldn't shake off my old frugal habits, so I tend to overthink even when buying something new. From my husband's perspective, my actions seemed prudent and thrifty, which might have been why he decided to marry me. How much savings do you have, Samantha? You're not interested in luxury or fashion, right? LOL. I think we might be similar. Our financial values might even align. He often said such things. For me, who always dreaded a life of poverty, having aligned financial values was a blessing. But now that I think about it, it was rude to ask about savings, let alone to casually say that a woman isn't interested in fashion. It's rude to ask about someone's savings. Besides, it's offensive to assume that a woman isn't interested in fashion. Back then, I still hoped that my insensitive husband would change. Less than a year into dating, we decided to get married. The discussion about the unexpected cohabitation came up right after we were newly married. I have something I want to discuss with you today, Samantha. Don't be shocked, LOL. He said this with a smirk. That made me suspect that it was bad news, and it indeed turned out to be an absolutely terrible idea. After discussing with my mom, we've actually decided to live together at her house. You know, she can't manage without me. And since the lease on this apartment ends next month, we're moving. He told me this without considering my opinion, as if he and his mother had already decided everything. Wait a minute. Isn't that too sudden? Your parents' house is quite far from my workplace. Honestly, I was against living with them, so I objected, but it was already decided, and he insisted strongly. Every time he opened his mouth, it was Mom, Mom. Honestly, that alone was off-putting, but what shocked me more was, the house is a bit small for 4 people, and it's inconvenient. Plus, my sister comes to visit often, so we're taking out a loan to renovate it. LOL. He took out a loan in his own name without consulting me at all. You've got to be kidding. Are you sane? It's absolutely impossible. Living with the in-laws and the frequent presence of his sister. After a series of unbelievable stories, another shocking statement came from my husband. So that's why you need to quit your current job. As a wife, you'll have to take care of not only me, but my parents as well from now on. Well, if you still want to work, I'll allow you to do remote work. LOL. Everything was too fast and one-sided for me to fully grasp and understand the situation. Why are you doing all these selfish things? You're not considering my feelings at all. Huh? Why should I consider your feelings? LOL. I'm the head of the family, so the decision-making is in my hands, right? I had plans for work that would take years to accomplish, but here I was, expected to throw them all away and become a housewife. I somewhat understood what he meant, to think this would happen within just a year of marriage. Of course, I said, this isn't what we agreed on, and completely refused the idea. However, no matter how long we talked, the discussion went nowhere. Once my husband realized my resolve was firm, he said, "If you keep being selfish, the family will suffer. It's your fault, so what are you going to do about it? And then, unbelievably, if that happens, we'll have to ask your parents for help." I couldn't believe that he'd even think of involving my parents in this. I've completely run out of patience with my husband's audacity, but my parents were getting old. I felt like our family was being held hostage, but I didn't want to worry my parents, so I had no choice but to agree. "If only you wouldn't just listen to your mother but to me as well." "Ah, LOL. No problem, no problem. Listening to you is the least I can do since I'm on your side, LOL. I was serious, but my husband took my words lightly. And as expected, the battle between me and my mother-in-law began as soon as we started living together. The remodeled house was surprisingly spacious and provided a private environment, but I became incredibly busy. Not long after we moved, I was still working, but my mother-in-law paid no attention to my work situation and said, "Hey, housemaid, when will you quit your job and focus on housework? If this continues, the house will remain a mess, LOL." Every day, I returned home exhausted only to be unilaterally scolded. My husband had initially promised to support me when it came to issues with my mother-in-law, but he never defended me in the end, and it became normal for him and my mother-in-law to blame me. You know how old my mother is, right? It's crazy to think you can dump all the housework on her. I only asked that we continue to handle our matters ourselves, yet somehow I was made out to be the bad guy. My father-in-law was technically present in the house, but he was so inconspicuous that he seemed to be avoiding trouble by running around the house. Mr. Baker, may I ask you something?" "No, no, no. Please stop. Don't talk to me. If she sees us chatting, I can't imagine what she'll say. I just wanted to know where the breaker was. It was over if we couldn't even have such conversations, right?" 2 weeks after we started living together, my husband and mother-in-law began threatening, "When are you going to quit your job? If you don't make up your mind soon, I might contact your company." I was determined not to lose my job, the only place where I felt I belonged and had a purpose. This dragged on, and then my husband said, "Your mom is a kind person. If you really don't want to quit your job, maybe she can do something about it." He suggested that instead of me, my mother could come and take care of the house. Seems like he didn't want to blame anyone but me. It's not unthinkable that he would call my mother to threaten her and cause trouble. Resignation was the only option left for me. Even after I hurriedly handed over my work to a junior and resigned because my mother-in-law and husband kept insisting, I received no gratitude for quitting. Anyway, that was the start of my days being exploited. You quit your job, so your income has decreased, right? Don't just rely on me. Find a way to earn money through remote work or something. Next, he said to earn money from home. He was essentially telling me, don't slack off, handle everything. Previously, I would have argued back, but now the desire not to see his face anymore grew stronger. If he was foreseeing this and speaking sarcastically, then he was quite a strategist. Our conversations almost ceased, and I became a housemaid for his family. My sister-in-law often came to me and said, "Hey, you're not leaving all the mortgage payments to my brother Michael, are you? Since we're letting you live here, you should contribute to the repayment too. It must have cost at least $300,000 for the renovation." What? Letting me live here? We're a married couple. It's natural for us to live together. They decided to cohabit on their own and even went ahead with the renovations and then told me to quit my job. And now to help with the mortgage payments too? Anyone would say this is absurd. I unintentionally raised my voice. But my sister-in-law immediately changed the topic. What a foul-mouthed wife. Well, you were raised poorly, so it's natural you don't know what a normal family is like. I won't blame you. Communication was completely ineffective. Why did I have to endure this? That's exactly how I felt. Well, if it were a family where common sense prevailed, this conversation wouldn't even be happening. I definitely married a dangerous man. That night, my husband said to me, "You heard from my sister today, right? About the mortgage repayment for this house, LOL. We've decided to split it among everyone. Or rather, it's only natural for you, my wife, to pay. That's what I think, LOL." Seeing my husband smirk while he said this, I was speechless. Until now, I resisted letting things go his way. But this moment was when I truly realized everything. I can't live with this man any longer. If I stayed, not only would I ruin myself, but also his family. However, I couldn't just bring up divorce immediately. I thought it would worry my parents. My mother's health had recently deteriorated, and she was visiting the hospital, while my father, who was caring for her, was also accumulating fatigue. Bringing up divorce might shock them too much. I couldn't be so selfish. So, I thought I'd resolve the current issues first. As suggested by my husband and his family, I started to work from home and helped with the mortgage repayments. Along the way, I asked my husband to change the loan procedures and cooperated to pay it off quickly, so maybe because I was diligently repaying the loan, he was in a good mood, saying, "It's good that you're finally acting like a proper wife. If you kept acting high and mighty. I was even considering divorcing you, LOL. I was clearly paying more, and the situation remained unfair, but I committed to enduring it until everything was settled. Before I knew it, I was 34 years old, and 6 years had passed since our marriage. Thinking about why I got married made me sad, so I tried to stay positive and maintained a positive outlook. Sometimes, when I checked social media, I saw old friends who had 2 children and were posting about traveling with their families, which made me envious. I also wanted a happy marriage and children. Now, those wishes seemed unreachable. But over the past few years, my mother-in-law had less to complain regarding my behavior. Maybe our maid has finally become a decent human being. It was tough to educate an unreasonable daughter-in-law, but it turned out okay. She would say while laughing with my sister-in-law, "Ultimately, remote work seemed to suit me well, and although I haven't told my husband, I've earned a substantial amount over these years." And to my surprise, I managed to pay off the $300,000 in just a few years. Normally, it would take 35 years. We would have been over 60 years old, but I wanted him to appreciate how quickly I managed to repay it. That night, I said to my husband, "You know, it's about the mortgage. I just paid it off the other day. And today, I have something important to discuss." I had prepared divorce papers and was making preparations to leave the house for this very day. But the moment I mentioned that the mortgage was paid off, my mother-in-law came over and exclaimed, "What? Paid off? It's already paid off." My mother-in-law, who heard everything, interrupted our conversation. "Yes, that's right. And today I wanted to have an important discussion with Michael." Just as I was about to bring up the topic of divorce, my mother-in-law approached me with a smile wider than I had ever seen before and said this: "Now that everything is settled, it's better if the nuisance leaves, right? LOL. From now on we can finally live without the nuisance, just our family, right? LOL. You're right, Mom." I was thinking the same. "So that's settled. Samantha, I'm divorcing you. Please leave right now." Before I could say it, my husband brought up divorce. Despite being forced to live with my in-laws and help with mortgage repayments after getting married, I was suddenly deemed a nuisance and faced with a divorce proposal. To be told first, rather than saying it myself, felt off. And then, in front of me, my mother-in-law started calling a locksmith. "Could you please change the locks? We need it done urgently." After enduring so much, it was at this moment I swore to bring my husband and his entire family down to hell. Soon after, the locksmith arrived at our home and changed the locks. My mother-in-law and husband were smirking at me and said, "That's the way it is. You need to leave this house today. LOL. We're going to live happily in this house as a family from now on." That's right. Samantha, thank you for your hard work over the last 6 years. Oh, and by the way, no alimony or division of assets, please. Michael and I haven't done anything to warrant trouble. LOL. They said that. No division of assets. Well, that's fine. Kind of lucky. LOL. With that in mind, I handed over the divorce papers I had prepared. I quickly drafted a document stating no alimony or division of assets and had them sign it. My husband happily signed the divorce papers. My mother-in-law watched him sign, and from the corner of the room, my father-in-law quietly observed everything. Thinking that I could finally say goodbye to these people was an exhilarating feeling. I quickly packed my belongings and left the house with the signed documents. I could hear cheers and clapping from inside the house, but honestly, those words should be coming from me. Because from now on, the tables were going to turn. LOL. After leaving the house, I immediately went to submit the divorce papers and then straight to the real estate agent. I had already visited the real estate agent several times before and started preparations on that end. Mr. Carter, the agent, had an aura of a true professional, understood everything I was planning to do, and took immediate action. A week after I left the house, sure enough, I received a call. My ex-husband and his family, looking frantic, called me. "Hey Samantha, what's going on? We got a notice to vacate this house within a week. Don't tell me this is your doing? This is terrible. How could you do this?" Mr. Carter, who I knew worked efficiently, managed to finish the procedures quickly and even found a buyer for that house, which was incredible. About that, I asked the real estate agent. After all, I was the one who finished paying off the mortgage. Did you forget? I changed the ownership to my name halfway through. LOL. What? As expected, my ex-husband remembered nothing. It seemed he only had the mortgage repayment on his mind, and any other procedural changes were made according to my instructions without him checking the details. Well, even so, Michael was the one who didn't check. It was not my responsibility. Anyway, I'm the one who paid off the $300,000. Besides, I never received any living expenses from you, right? Even your father and mother, whenever they received their pensions, would say, "We'll use our money ourselves," and didn't give a penny. I mean, there's a good reason for that. In the end, I was the one who had been supporting this family for 6 years. I was told to quit my job to earn from home, and despite doing as told, I was constantly berated to the point of feeling sick to my stomach. And on top of that, I was made to help with the mortgage repayments. After all I had done for this family without a single thank you, having the locks changed and being thrown out, I couldn't just stay silent. Wait a minute. Let's talk again. If we talk, you'll understand. After all, we were a family. And we have nowhere to go if we leave this house. You know that, right? Michael said this with a voice close to tears, but there was no way I would be fooled by such weak words now. LOL. A place to go? There is one. LOL. Your sister Mary's house. Why don't the 4 of you live at her house? When I said this spitefully, my mother-in-law took the phone and said, "How can you be so mean? There's no way we can live at her house. She's going through a tough divorce herself. You can't possibly cause trouble for my daughter." So I said, "Oh, so even if it's your beloved son's wife, she's still a stranger, and it's okay to cause her trouble. Well, that makes sense. Now I understand your thinking even better, and I dislike you even more. LOL. There's no way I'll help." You. I could hear unbearable insults from the other end of the phone, but I felt relieved to have said what I wanted to say. "Well, anyways, please leave quickly. It must be tough without any money. I think you're a close-knit family, so hold hands and work hard together. LOL. Bye." Wait a minute. You. Enough with the jokes. My mother-in-law was shouting, but I just hung up the phone. Even at such a crucial moment, my ex-husband hid behind his mother and didn't utter a word. This was his true nature, talking big, but when it mattered, he made excuses and ran away. Well, it just showed I had no judgment when it came to men. 3 days later, Mr. Carter went out of his way to let me know what happened to them afterward. He might have sensed my apprehension that they might do something crazy out of spite. Just before the house was put up for sale, my ex-husband and his family moved out at night. Desperate, they begged relatives, but being disliked by most, they eventually ended up in the countryside at my father-in-law's parental home. Even there, they were not welcomed, and moreover, there was bad communication between my mother and father-in-law's family. Well, with such people, it was to be expected. They were given only one room and, being freeloaders, were made to work from morning till evening in my father-in-law's family's farm. Although my mother-in-law was elderly, I didn't feel sorry for her. The treatment they gave me has simply come back to haunt them. They will likely continue to live in poverty, and more importantly, they'll never live in a nice single-family home again. They should look back and regret that their past life was actually quite comfortable. Anyway, I'm relieved there was no division of assets. After all, someone who can pay off $30 million in 10 years is capable enough to come up with all sorts of bad ideas. Lucky for me that my husband was not smart. LOL. As for me, I was fortunate to quickly find a job. It seemed that news of my divorce and leaving the house had reached my previous workplace somehow, and they reached out to me. "Without you, Samantha, the workplace just doesn't function," my colleague said, and it sounded genuine. Being able to restart a career I had once given up on really felt like luck was on my side. And in the slightly changed team at work, there was a man who seemed particularly concerned about me. Though I thought I was done with such things for a while, being around him made me think that maybe it wasn't such a bad idea. Now I'm living a fulfilled life, both at work and in my personal life.